babe. Don't forget we gotta get ready in 2 hours for that event, okay?
I got so much to do. How am I ever gonna get this done?
Jay, so do we need to cancel? What are you wearing? It's game night.
On JTV, and I got two great guests today. Four-time Olympia, Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, and our friend Dan Solomon, big honcho in charge of the Mr. Olympia. Dan, welcome to JTV, my friend.
Well, Dave, thanks for having me. And the irony of this doesn't get lost on me. I don't think there's anybody on the planet outside of you, Dave, who has interviewed Jay more often than I have. And here I am on Jay's show about to get interviewed by you and Jay. So I kind of like that.
You know what was so funny? We were driving yesterday, Dan, and we were talking about how we were going to do this interview with you, and we think back to like almost 20 years ago. You were way ahead of the game with the Pro Bodybuilding Weekly. It was like a podcast, right? Or without video, but like you were doing all this stuff, and we were talking about like, you know, I was with Muscle Tech at the time, and they were like the title sponsor for I don't even know how many years. You could probably correct me, but like you were ahead of that curve, man. You were me from day one.
You know, it's funny. You and I have talked about this, Jay, how your career timeline and my timeline in this industry have almost been a complete overlap. When you started doing your thing, when you started becoming, Jay Cutler, it's when I sort of broke into this business and started doing a whole bunch of different things. But that Pro Bodybuilding Weekly show, it was real exciting because prior to us doing that, the only way to consume bodybuilding for fans to follow their favorite sport was to pick up the magazines and wait every month for them to come in the mail. And then, of course, the internet started to kick in. But if they wanted to hear Jay Cutler's voice and they wanted to hear you talk about the win you just had or what you were preparing for that year's Olympia, they had to come on Pro Bodybuilding Weekly and to hear you talk about that. And I always say my favorite episode, now there have been many interviews that have been poignant and meaningful in my life, but the episode of Pro Bodybuilding Weekly that I will never forget was the night we took to the air in the fall of 2006, and we announced that the impossible had happened, that Ronnie Coleman had been defeated in his bid for a 9th Sandow Trophy by Jay Cutler, and it was just such an exciting day. I still get goosebumps as I think about it. Anybody who was in that building that night just knows how special that was, and to have been able to cover it. And you were such a man of your word, too, because you had just done something that basically changed your life forever. And it had everybody in the world wanting a piece of you, and they were coming at you from 100 different directions. And I called you right when the show was over, and you gave me your word that you would come on our program, and you did. And it was a moment I'll never forget because I know what it meant to bodybuilding fans, and I know what it meant to you, and of course your life has never been the same ever since.
14 years ago, Dan.
It's crazy. In fact, when you think about it, this year marks 10 years since you won the Olympia for the last time, and your career is just, to me, it means so much, right? I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is I always go back to 2001. Now, I always loved bodybuilding, but 2001 at that Olympia, that was the night it just went to a whole nother level because, of course, you came in, you had just finished, 8th at the prior year's Night of Champions. You weren't supposed to do anything, and you came in and you almost kind of won the contest, right? You ended up finishing second, but what a lot of people don't forget is you were 28 years old that night, and we forget how young you were when you almost beat Ronnie Coleman. And a lot of people feel that you did beat Ronnie Coleman, certainly after the judging. But it was definitely an exciting night, and you've had so many great moments.
Yeah, crazy. My guy's over here drilling up, cutting up my. Can you hear it?
Oh, that's what it is.
He's grinding my. He's cutting my barbecue pit over here. So sorry about the noise in the background. But yeah, Dan, it was you know what my lifelong dream was. I mean, we shared a lot of time. I mean, I remember being in Miami. We did that. You came to that muscle camp we did, one of Sean Ray's camps, I think, and that was 2003. And I never realized it would take me that much longer to go ahead and beat Coleman when I was finishing second so many times. It felt like the impossible. And I really like that outlet, and we're trying to kind of recreate that in today's era and giving people a voice to be able to be heard from all over, right? People have now jumped on the media bandwagon. It seems like everyone's doing podcasts. There's so much information out there, but what we try to do is spin a lot of positivity, and especially during times like this where people are glued to phones or to their computers. There's a lot of information out there, and working on the production side for many years, and now being the leader, and kind of like, I mean, everyone's coming to you for what your insight is on the Olympias, and I'm sure the other shows. We usually have a crazy travel schedule. This is the first time, Dan, I've stayed home in April in 20 years, which is crazy for me.
Yeah, you look, nobody travels more than you, and I will tell you that it's been quite an adjustment, and for whatever it's worth, none of us should feel sorry for ourselves, right? I mean, the reality is, I think, to the doctors and nurses who are all going to hospitals every day, and everybody in healthcare who's doing that work, and they're the real heroes in all of this. But it's been an adjustment for everybody, and I know a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people aren't sure where their next rent or mortgage payment's going to come from, and for us, it's really been an adjustment just from a productivity and lifestyle standpoint. Look, our industry, the whole fitness community, it's very much a routine-oriented lifestyle, right? We all have our structure and our commitments, whether it's professionally or physically in fitness and training, and to be able to turn that upside down and just have to go back to waking up every day and not leaving the house, it's quite an adjustment. And I can imagine for you, Jay, it must be really just crazy, because you're all over the place. You're all over the planet. But you said something just a minute ago that I want to comment on. You were talking about how you and Dave really work to do positive work on Jay Cutler TV. And I know I've had a chance to work with Dave. Dave and I worked together on a project at one time. And I will tell you this, there is nobody who embodies the positivity of bodybuilding on the media side the way you do, Dave. Dave, you do such a good job of finding these athletes, telling their stories, elevating them in a way that really a lot of people don't. And I know the whole community out there in Venice Beach and the whole Gold's Gym scene, they really depend on you to put them out there on the forefront. So I've always tried to cover the sport in a positive way. And when I see other people doing it, it really resonates to me. So good work, man. I hope you keep doing it.
Wow, thanks. It means a lot, Dan. I mean, I took a page from your. I mean, I remember when you were having me on your show at times, and you would just say, "Hey, let's get to Venice," and you'd get me on Pro Bodybuilding Weekly at the time, and worldwide afterwards. It's just, I learned a lot from you doing the interviews and all that stuff. It just, and yeah, we just, there's always good things in everything, good things and bad things. We choose to focus on the good things and not get involved in the drama. I think people appreciate that because, I don't know, it's more fun to watch, I feel, and more uplifting, I guess.
Agreed.
Dan, you put together that little video. I really enjoyed that, being part of that video. What was the background behind that? Tell me a little bit.
I was actually watching on television, sitting with my family, and we were watching a show on NBC, and they had all the various stars of all the NBC TV shows. They came on and they kind of put messages out to all their fans and just try to provide some level of unity and comfort to everybody around the world. And I saw them do that, and I thought to myself, what a great thing it would be for bodybuilding fans around the world to get to hear from all of their favorites, folks like you and Brandon Curry and Flex Lewis, and just all the celebrities, that we were able to incorporate. Jim Mannion participated, and so many. And to be able to put that message out, I know it's been really well received. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, it's the most overused phrase, but it's so true. We truly are in this together, and there's everybody's situation shares parallels. And the same way Jay and Dave, you guys are, stuck at home, and I'm doing the same, and so many others are right there in this situation. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said this whole pandemic and what it's forced the world to do has almost been the great equalizer, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're rich or if you're poor, or if you have a plane parked in your backyard, there's no way to go. There's no place to go. There's no place to fly to that I know of anyway, that is removed from this situation. So we truly are all in this together. And I thought that video came together nicely, and I was grateful to everybody who sent over footage. And I think we got to do more of that stuff just to keep everybody sort of feeling connected to what we're all doing.
That's true.
I just said to Dave yesterday, because I'm like, man, I'd love to take a trip to California. I'm sure there's a couple of hotels still open, but what do I do when I get there, right? Is no restaurants to eat at, no
gym
closed. I mean, you can't even ride bikes on the boardwalk. I mean, I'm getting out every day, Dan, and as you know, I live in a small subdevelopment. There's only 19 homes in this development, so I walk every morning, and we've been shooting, YouTube and getting my thought processes. But I was saying this morning, like on one of my videos, like, this is a time people keep saying, oh, this is a time you should take a course online, or you should read a book, or like, but I know for me, I have not wasted any time. It seems like I'm still, like, we were clocked till like 11 o'clock last night, right, Dave? We were so tired. Yeah. We were shooting content all day. And I mean, I've been training in my garage and showing like instructional things that way. I've been on social media a lot more doing shout out stuff for people to keep people motivated. And I'm getting thank you messages daily about that. So how has your life changed? I mean, normally, what would your schedule be this time of year, especially as you're prepping for like, the fall season, which is like your Super Bowl, right? So how has it really changed for you?
So in my role overseeing the Olympia, which we are 5 months out from right now, what has changed is our focus would be on exhibitor sales, on sponsorship sales. This is the time of year when we do that. Certainly the climate has changed quite a bit, right? So companies right now don't want to have those conversations. So that has created a bit of a delay on that process. We are also starting to begin our production planning, and a lot of this stuff has continued business as usual. To be honest with you, we have a tremendous team. I work closely with my Olympia coordinator, Angelica, and my producer, Tamer El-Gindi, who does a tremendous job. And we have just a great staff. We've brought in some new folks. We brought in Tim Gardner to help us oversee elements of the expo. And then, of course, Caden and Martine, a lot of folks that I know you guys are familiar with and you've worked with in different ways. We spend our days thinking of every possible way to make this year's Olympia epic. We were able to achieve some really great things last year, but this year and right now, the focus is on what can we do to make it better, to improve the fan experience, to engage more audiences. And obviously there's challenges right now. The world has dealt us a very unkind hand right now. But we also realize that where the Olympia exists on the schedule this year, being that it's sort of the culminating event of the season, we realize that it's more important now than ever. It's more important than just a bodybuilding contest. We plan for this year's Olympia to be a true celebration of resilience, that we all as a fitness community were able to weather this and get our lives back on track and hopefully make our way back to the Olympia. And I think that's going to be symbolic in more ways than just crowning another champion or more champions. I think it's going to really be representative of something special this year. But my life is as busy as can be. I'm just not moving around as much. But we're on top of it. There's a lot of scenarios in play. We are working closely with the people in Las Vegas, with the city leaders, with the folks who oversee the Las Vegas, the convention center, the arena. The Olympia is a little more complicated than other events because we have a convention center, we have an arena, and we have hotels. So for that, it kind of creates a situation where we have to make sure everybody is communicated with and in line. And if things need to be adjusted, well, then we'll deal with that. But right now, we're just full speed ahead.
But
Dan,
you're not traveling now, Dan, right? You're not getting on a plane right now, right?
Not a chance. No way. I'm not getting on a plane. My kid's not going to school. Yeah, we're just locking it down here. I have no plans to go anywhere. And fortunately, we have a great new owner in Jake Wood, who, as all of you guys know, recently acquired the Olympia, and he's been very supportive of these realities. He understands them. He understands, if you want to call it crisis management and all that. So we're working very calmly and very methodically to make sure that we're in a good place. And Jake and I and the entire team, and we have a pretty large team, because not only do I oversee the Olympia, but also Muscle and Fitness magazine. So, of course, Muscle and Fitness magazine is no longer printed, but it is a full digital enterprise. So through muscleandfitness.com and all the social media channels, we have that whole media side of what we do. And Jake, of course, acquired all of that, and he's really brought great leadership and vision to what we're doing. So that has made this process a whole lot easier, having Jake's ownership style at the helm of what we're doing, because we're very fortunate that we're not sort of getting caught in the weeds and going down a road that could be, dark on certain levels. So we're in a really good place, and the energy is very positive.
I'm glad you brought up Jake, because that was going to be my next question. And I think personally it's so great. I mean, we worked with Jake. We covered his Rising Phoenix show together. We did
That's right.
the shooting for it and all that stuff. So I think it's such a great thing that he actually took over the Olympia. How do you think it's going to help the brand? He's such a big fan at heart, that guy. I think it's going to be really helping the sport and everybody in it. Don't you agree?
No question. Look, at the end of the day, you want to work with like-minded people who share your passions. It's the reason why you and Jay work together. It's the reason why, Tamer and I work together. Jake just loves everything about this community, the athletes, male, female. He's very much an advocate, of course, as everyone knows, for the women's side of bodybuilding and fitness. But Jake is a true advocate in the most positive way. We have conversations in which he will dissect every possible way to provide more opportunities for the athletes, more visibility for the sport. Jim Mannion is also very involved in those conversations. So we're all very intertwined. And I want to say also along those lines, last year, one of the best things that we did in our promotion of the 2019 Olympia was to select you, Jay, as our honorary ambassador for the event. Because let me tell you something, you mean so much to bodybuilding fans. You mean so much to me and to all of us at the Olympia, that when you agreed to do that, it really brought a lot of great energy, because a lot of people follow your lead. And, for a few years, you had become a little bit, I guess, disconnected, not as involved with the Olympia vibe, and you had, gotten busy in a lot of your projects and so forth. So it was so important on my list of things when I got hired to oversee and take the reins of the Olympia. One of my first things, I wrote it on a piece of paper. I said, got to get Jay Cutler back right here in this family where he belongs. And it's not that you ever went anywhere, because you're a 4-time Olympia champion, probably one of the most visible Olympia champions of all time. But I just felt like having your presence at the Olympia was important. And I know Jake, also our new owner, feels the same way. And we're excited to continue working with you. But yeah, there's a lot happening right now.
Dan, tell me a little, we talk about Vegas and how the Olympia's been here since '99. It was my first one. And we know Vegas is, it's the place, right? It's where everyone wants to travel. And the Olympia used to travel back in the day. Has there been any consideration, any discussion of that possibility in the future, or do you think it has its home in Las Vegas till the end of time, from what you foresee?
I think anybody who runs an event or owns a business always has to constantly evaluate. The world changes on a dime, and we all know that. And I think you have to constantly evaluate the variables, and there are many variables, economic variables, logistics, travel. So at the end of every Olympia, we did it last year, we'll do it again this year, we'll do it again next year. You have those conversations in which you discuss the fan experience. You discuss everything from, revenue to ticket sales to, all the components that tie to the event promotion and marketing and advertising and all the pieces that tie to this brand. And you look at it. So I would never say never. I don't think anything is beyond being explored and being discussed. Right now, we love our home in Vegas. It's been there for a lot of years now. Every year, as you know, since 1999. And right now, the plan, of course, is we're going to have the event in Vegas this year and potentially next year and for years to come. But let me tell you something. We talk about it. We talk about it in great detail. And if something came along that we felt was for the betterment of the sport, for the IFBB Pro League, if we felt that it created opportunities for visibility or athletes or something, we're going to look at it and we'll make a change if that were to ever happen. But for now, we're just focused on Vegas. But it certainly is everything to me is in play.
When you had the offer for that job, Dan, how did your life change when you got that phone call? And I'm sure it was like a dream come true for you, but did you ever imagine you would be running the Olympia ever? Was that on your bucket list example, or did you ever think about it?
It never even crossed my mind. It never even was on any list of any realm of things that I was thinking about doing.
Wow.
I'll be honest with you. The 2018 Olympia happened, and AMI reached out. We had some really productive conversations. They were asking me about all certain elements of my observations of the Olympia as a brand, of a year-round component, not just the weekend itself, of how the event is marketed, how it's licensed, just all aspects of sponsorship and exhibitor sales and connecting with new audiences and all that sort of thing. And we had this conversation, and then they ended up bringing me out to New York, and I met with their CEO David, and we had a really good conversation. And by the time the conversation was over, I was offered this job, and it didn't even make sense to me at the time because I wasn't even thinking about pursuing this. I just assumed the Olympia was what it was, and that was the end of it. And I obviously have always been a big advocate of it. But yes, when it was offered to me, I actually spent a few days thinking about whether or not I wanted to take the job because I knew that it would change the structure of my life tremendously. I've always had a very entrepreneurial approach to this industry, and I've always kind of done things the way I wanted to do them. And suddenly this would put me in a situation where, of course, everyone knows AMI is a big media company, and it would create a different level of accountability and structure. But I knew it would also give me a chance to do some things that I was never able to do before. So in the end, the deciding factor was this. All of us at various times, we've always sat back and we've questioned things, right? We've always said, man, the Olympia should do this way instead of this way. Or we've always had those conversations because that's what all of us do in the bodybuilding world is we sit back and we analyze and we critique, and it's what we do. But I thought to myself, if I don't take this job, I can never criticize or have an opinion about anything ever again, because here I am in a position to actually implement all the things that I'd always wanted to do. So it became an easy decision after I looked at it that way. But yeah, it was a big life changer. And no, I never saw it coming.
I have a question for you because being an Olympia champion, there's a lot of buildup. I told you it was a lifelong journey for me. At 33, I won my first title. And in 2006, I won that for the first time. And, you as a media person, you did a lot of my interviews after, right? You sat there and you broadcasted the show. I mean, you did the live feed a lot. And I have a question for the promoter of the Olympia. So the show ends on Saturday night, okay, last year. When the show's over and you go back to your hotel room, what happens? What goes through your mind? What does the promoter do, knowing that all that year's work was put to that one night, to that performance, and now it's over and we start over? Do you already start thinking about the next year, or do you try to just shut the brain off? I know what I'm gonna tell you. You sent me a picture. You were drinking something, a drink somewhere. I forget where you were, but you said, "This is what I'm doing right now," because I hit you up soon after. So tell me what the immediate response is.
For starters, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that text that I received from you moments after the show on Saturday night, it was such a positive text from you about the Olympia, and it meant so much to me. So thank you for that. It meant everything to me that you, at the end of your experience of the 2019 Olympia weekend, said the things to me that you said about the event, and I'll never forget it. But I will tell you, it was very the feeling when the night is over for this past year was unlike anything else, because the year wasn't normal. We didn't have the benefit of 12 months like prior Olympia leadership would have the entire year, right? That's a standard year. We didn't have that benefit. I got hired a few months into the event cycle, and then the gentleman who was producing the event, Robin, he ended up in the midway through the year. We ended up going our separate ways, and Robin pursued another opportunity. A very exciting opportunity, by the way, that for Robin to work with Dwayne Johnson. So suddenly, I found myself without my producer. We had staff turnover, and then a few months after that, our reigning champion was charged with a very serious crime, right? So, and I say that not to bring it up, but these events created the most unconventional lead-in to the Olympia. We had to hear everybody talk about how nobody was going to go to the Olympia last year. We had to hear all these scenarios about just all these negative, worst-case scenarios. So to answer your question, when we were able to execute a weekend in which we had, just a tremendous start to finish from the Meet the Olympians, we had significant increases, and our press conference, of course, we did that differently. We had a nice crowd there, and then of course the events on Friday and Saturday night, which we had a packed house for. So after everything that we had gone through, after seeing our staff, our team come together and sort of rise above, all the skeptics and the critics and everybody who were predicting very negative things about the event. Look, what we've learned, and I know you guys know this as well as anybody, the Olympia is a very polarizing topic. People love to pick it apart, right? I always say, if you go to the Arnold Classic, if half the building was empty, nobody would say a word. If you go to the Olympia and there's two people out of their seats in row 22, somebody's going to do a whole blog article about that, right? So people are so quick to break down and dissect the Olympia. And by the way, we love that. It's completely fine, but we saw a lot of the opinions out there. And the fact that we were able to come together, dig in, roll up our sleeve, work our butts off from 5 a.m. every day to midnight every night, and to get to Vegas and to pull off that event, and to see Brandon Curry on the stage at the end of the night as the confetti fell and the smoke was on the stage, and our team just did such a beautiful job and the building was packed. It was, you asked how I felt when I got back to my hotel room. My eyes were watering as I was in the building. It did not take that long. I was very emotional. And then my son came over right as the night ended, and he gave me a hug. And even as I think about it now, it's sort of like probably how you view 2006, right? You went on to do a million incredible things in your life, but there will always be that first one, that moment that will just stand apart. And it was very special. And I'm very grateful to everybody who helped make that happen, for sure.
Well, if last year is any indication of, with all the challenges that you had, that it was a good year, imagine how good this year will be. It's much worse.
It's so funny because I exchanged text messages with Robin the other day, and I said to him, I said, God, I just wish I could just have one normal year, right? Just 1 year leading up where there isn't a pandemic, or I don't have to replace an entire staff, or there isn't a major news item surrounding our event. Just a regular year is all I want, where we can just finish one event and roll into the next and just have business as usual. And so far, this is my second year now in doing this. And on that front, we're 0 for 2.
Well, you know what, though? It's good training, because when you do get a normal year, you're going to do so well because you've been through hell already. So
Yeah, yeah. No, but you know what though? Look, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. I mean, it's one of those things where there's a reason, why you get put into these positions, and you just do it. And I'll just tell you that I have a team unlike any other. I'll just say that. I mean, these folks, they care so deeply about the sport, about the pro league, about the Olympia, and whether you're talking about from Jake, our owner, myself, and Tamer, and Angelica, and Tim, and Martine, and Kaden, and Sophia, and on our whole staff, I can tell you, Heather, everybody, I can tell you that they genuinely and authentically love this stuff. It is not just a job for them. And it's much the same as you, Dave. And I've always said, you're living your dream, right? Because you get to wake up every day and do just what you love. It's the most natural state for you to do what you do. And that's how it is for all of us. So I don't know if we'll ever have a normal year. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way.
You sound like Jay when you say I'm living the dream, by the way. He tells me that every day.
It's good to be Dave, huh, Jay?
Life is easy. So Dan, there's been some changes in the schedule. We might lose a couple contests that are qualifying shows this year. The Olympia date is set. I mean, that's pretty standard, right? We're probably not going to see. Our expectations are things moving forward. Things are going to go as planned. Now, as far as the qualification, like when's the first qualifying show? Is that going to be the New York Pro? Is that the first qualifier for the season?
So I don't know if that's the first one. I know that Tyler Mannion and Jim and their whole team have worked really hard on getting events rescheduled. Initially, the cutoff to qualify for the Olympia was the Tampa show, which is at the start of August. And we have announced that we are extending that into, I believe, the end of August or potentially even early September. And we're kind of discussing how that might work. I know Jake is incredibly committed to making sure that, every event champion leading up to the Olympia has a chance to compete. So we're not trying to make it any harder than it has to be. But I don't know when the first one is. I just know that it's every single day things are being moved and adjusted. Look, people are always asking the questions, right? But we're all at the mercy of what's happening in the world. Just when you have something figured out, when we were dealing with this thing in late March, early April, June seemed viable. Now here we are a couple weeks from May, and suddenly June doesn't seem as good anymore, right? So, and now you start talking about July and into August. So I don't know how the schedule looks right now, but I do know that we're doing a lot of things very aggressively, and I got to give a lot of credit to everybody at the Pro League and the NPC, because, man, I'll tell you, their job, imagine being I just focus on the Olympia. That's all I'm thinking about, and of course, muscle and fitness. But I will tell you, it is crazy to be in the event business and to have to figure out ways to manage this reality when you're talking about hundreds of events on the amateur and on the pro side. So, I tip my cap to, Jim and Tyler and everybody and Robin and everybody who's involved in the scheduling component of this. It's been a huge, huge undertaking, and they've really taken it on as aggressively as possible to make sure as many events happen as possible.
Great.
Yeah, that is great. Do you have, I think you do because I heard you say that before, but maybe you can mention it again. Do you guys have any contingent plan based on not qualification, but possibly invitation for the Olympia in case people don't have the chance to? Because a lot of the top guys still have access to a gym. Not everybody, but we spoke to a few people, and some people have Connect, and they're still able to train. So not everybody's completely out of a gym, So would it be a possibility that you guys may have to invite some people to the Olympia? Is that something in the plans, possibly?
Well, I know right now, what a lot of people don't realize is that here we are today in April, and 115 athletes have already qualified for Olympia weekend. So that's the first thing. And included in that are a lot of the big names. So, because of the Arnold, because of the late season events last year, and because of the Olympia last year, most of the really big names have already secured their spots. Now, of course, there's a few that have not qualified yet. Right now, we're not looking to start giving out invitations. I mean, there are some great pro shows on the schedule, and these athletes, need to compete in those shows and qualify in the most conventional way. Now, of course, as we get closer, if the situation changes and Jim Mannion and Jake, and if we come together and we see that there is a necessity to start revisiting that process, and I think we would do that. But right now, we just, there's some great shows. Look, the New York Pro is going on in August, Big Steve's show up there in New York, and that's a great show. And if I am not qualified for the Olympia right now, I am giving serious thought to, competing in that show and many others. I know that, Tim's show in Tampa, and, there's a number of shows that are still out there. So I would strongly encourage any athlete who is not qualified to plan on competing until that's no longer a possibility.
Right.
Dan, is there a plan to invite some of the legends back to the contest this year?
Wasn't it great last year? I don't know if you noticed, but the first row at the Olympia last year, Flex Wheeler, yourself, Chris Cormier, of course, Lee Haney was in the building, Samir was in the building. There was a long list of just great legendary bodybuilders, and that was important for us. I know we had heard through the grapevine that a lot of those bodybuilding legends weren't a part of some of the prior years' Olympias for reasons that I don't know. I wasn't a part of it, so I'm sure there's some explanation. But the bottom line is these legends are such a part of the history of the Olympia, and it's important to me and our team to have them there. The other thing that we're going to be able to throw into the mix this year is on the Miss Olympia side, we're bringing back the Miss Olympia, which is pretty exciting too. That'll allow us to kind of celebrate the history of female bodybuilding as well. I was just talking to Linda Murray about that recently, and I know there's plans in the work to make sure that the female bodybuilding side of things gets a real a spotlight shined on it, because it's important, and we haven't had it for about 6 years now. So this is going to be you're going to see a lot of the legends back, and a lot of celebrities. That was a big thing for us last year. We were just so thrilled to have more celebrity participation, and we're doing some things. We're continuing to do some things with Mark Wahlberg and support him however we can. And he's been very supportive of us. And of course, Shaquille O'Neal is involved. I was going to say he's trying to fill your big shoes as the Olympia ambassador, but the reality is his shoes are much bigger than yours, apparently, because I think I was told, what does he wear, a size 19 or 20? But Shaq's going to be there, and I'm sure he'll be bringing some of his friends, and we have some pretty good plans. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Jay, because having the legends, having the all-time greats there it's important to us. I know Sean Ray's been very helpful to us to kind of connect with that community and make sure that they are all well aware that we welcome them, we embrace them, and we're excited to make them a part of the Olympia for sure.
Yeah, I like what Sean's been doing with the Digital Muscle and doing these interviews, because those are people I admired when I came into the game, and those are people that inspired me. And to see some of these faces pop up, I mean, it's great that he's able to track these people down that have maybe been some of them are out of the spotlight. They're not necessarily on media all the time, and trying to rope them back into being involved, because I think it's really important for the core of the sport, especially for people like me. I'm a fan now more, Dan, of bodybuilding than I think I was through my career, now being on the other side. And I just have a passion for it. That's why I'm doing the promoting. I'm still doing all the travel to these events. And, I look forward to the end of the year, man. I've been trying to stay positive and tell everyone, hey, it's still going to be the greatest show on earth. There's nothing better than this.
Well, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned something about how much of a fan you've become. You remind me a lot of Arnold, because Arnold doesn't need bodybuilding anymore. Arnold is going to be fine. He has all the money that he needs. He can go ahead and he can pick up a nice payday, making a movie or public or doing speaking engagements. And, Arnold has all he'll ever need financially. But he still travels around the world. We just saw him in Columbus. And I assure you, he does not just do it for the money. He does it because he loves being around this industry. And I think the same can be said for you, Jay. Look, I'm not going to start getting into your finances, but I'm pretty sure you don't need the money at this point. And I know you're doing great. I know you've made a lot of great choices business-wise in your life that have put you in a position where you don't have to worry about money anymore. But you still stay true to the sport. You still have this channel, and you're doing great things with it. You still get out there. You still travel to the events. You still represent brands around the world, and you happen to remain one of the most influential brand ambassadors in the bodybuilding world. There are few athletes even competing today that provide as much horsepower to the brands they support that you do. And no, guys, Jay did not pay me to say this. I am not Jay's manager or his agent. I'm saying this because I'm an observer of the business of bodybuilding, and companies that have Jay working for them out there spreading their message, they do very well because of it. So I'm glad you stayed close to the sport, and I'll tell you what, as long as I'm in this position, I'm going to make sure that you are front and center at the Olympia, because it's just so important to us to have you. And Dave, keep doing it, man. You're doing great things. I'm so proud of what you've turned into in terms of just being a real positive voice in the bodybuilding world. And I know you get up every single day and you think of different ways to provide quality content. And as a result, I know this channel has grown, and you guys are doing great.
Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it coming from you. It's great.
Sure.
And Dan, I feel honored. I sat next to your wife and your son last year. I think I took your seat at the Olympia. So you're definitely right about giving me the best seat in the house.
You know, one of my great moments for Olympia weekend was I had stepped away for a moment, and you're right, my wife and my son were sitting there in their seat. I think it was it at the press conference or was it at the main event? I'm not sure. It was at one of the events. And there was an empty seat next to my son Nicholas, and I knew that it was being held for you because we had arranged that. And and by the way, you of course are my son's favorite bodybuilder. There's a poster in his room of you that you signed and the whole bit, and he just gets so excited when he gets to see you. So you came over and you sat right next to him, and I actually watched as it happened, and you should have seen his face. I'll post a picture of it so you guys can see it. The expression on my son's face when Jay sat unexpectedly next to him to watch the show, it was pretty special.
Send it to me. I'll put it in the video.
For sure.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate having your feedback and insights on what's going on right now. And I know you're getting out there, man. You're making the tours of the social platform, and it's great for people to be able to hear from you directly. And we appreciate having you on the show. And Jay, you want any word in closing?
No, man, it's always great. We're in touch anyway, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to listen, we haven't had you on the channel to really kind of interview you, and as you go through the process, right? And I mean, if I interviewed you in October, I think the response would be different than October today, right? Because now you're in it. Now you've kind of taken it all in. I've been there. I've been, at the top, and there's the big shoes to kind of fill as you try to beat yourself from the year prior, right? So I know your expectations are super high, and we're all in your corner. Anything we can do to promote. I know you send me every single week. You send me different topics to kind of post up. Happy to do that for you, and let's keep moving through 2020, and hopefully I see you on the circuit soon as we get the season start cranking again.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and of course the support means everything to all of us at the Olympia, and of course to everybody out there who's at home on lockdown right now. Just hang in there, man. Just keep doing it. Try to be productive, and I think there are so many ways for us to emerge from this individually, further along in some way, shape, or form, professionally, physically, mentally. Use the time productively, and try to put a positive spin on it, because I guarantee if you don't, you will look back at this time and you will say, God, I only wish I had used that time more productively. So make good use of it, and really, you guys are the greatest. Thanks so much for having me.